One, two, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Hey everybody, Sam Jacobs. Welcome to the Sales Hacker Podcast. Today on the show, we've got Shari Levitin. Shari runs her own sales consulting and training firm called the Levitin Group. She's been doing it for quite a while. And it's a really great conversation about how to make sure that training and coaching really sticks and is effective, and how you teach people and how you help them develop in such a way that they can be effective. We also talk about some of the differences between how much is coachable and what isn't coachable. And we also talk about that age-old question of, when the robots come, what are the salespeople going to do? And how do we make sure that we always have a profession and a career and that automation doesn't strip it away? And what are the things that only humans can do? So it's a really good conversation. She's a great speaker and just really fun and interesting. She's been doing a lot of great work on LinkedIn and, doing videos. And she also talks about the value of authenticity. That's one of the things that the robots won't be able to do. So hope you like this. Before we get there, let's thank our sponsor. Our sponsor for today's show is Outreach. Outreach supports sales reps by enabling them to humanize communications at scale, from automating the soul-sucking manual work that eats up selling time to provided action-oriented tips on what communications are working best. Outreach has your back. Now, without further ado, let's listen to Shari Levitin. Hey everybody, it's Sam Jacobs. Welcome to the Sales Hacker Podcast. Today on the show, we are incredibly excited to have one of the top influencers on LinkedIn. You might have seen her videos where she's holding a shotgun or skiing down the side of a mountain in Park City, Utah. But we've got Shari Levitin on the show. She's the founder of the Shari Levitin Group, which has helped create over $1 billion in increased revenue for companies in over 40 countries. She's the best-selling author of Heart and Sell, 10 Universal Truths Every Salesperson Needs to Know. She's contributed to Forbes CEO Magazine, Quotable, Inc. Magazine, and the Huffington Post. She's received dozens and dozens of awards, including from Sales Hacker itself, Top 10 Voices in Sales for LinkedIn in 2018. She's a guest lecturer at the Harvard Extension Programs, and a number of other things. Shari, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sam. I'm so excited to meet you. And I can't believe we haven't met in person.
Well, we're
nobody's meeting in person right now, so we'd have to stay very far away from each other.
Exactly. It's March 17th, and as of now, both your city and my city are on lockdown. So I don't think we're going to be able to meet in person. But we're so glad to have you on the show. Shari, we typically start with like a baseball card, but that can just be, the context of, give us a little bit about your background and why, tell us about how you got here. You've been mentioning that you've been doing a ton of videos on LinkedIn, and just give a little bit of context for the conversation.
Well, I had a very different background than a lot of your guests. I started in the hospitality industry back in, oh my goodness, I'm going to date myself, Sam, over 30 years ago.
Wow.
And quickly became the top salesperson in all of Marriott. And I joke that I did so well that I got a promotion to make less money and work longer hours. They made me a manager. And I remember as I kept growing in roles and leading bigger and bigger sales teams, my love and my passion was always training and developing people, watching this transformation, not only in their business lives, but in their personal lives. And one day we were all sitting around in Colorado talking about what we'd do if we won the then $32 million lottery. Now, Sam, have you ever done that? I'm sure people in our audience have done that before, like sort of had this fantasy of winning tens of millions of dollars.
I have done that. And it's always been a strange thought exercise because I always want to work. So I'm never quite sure what I'm supposed to do with it afterwards. What was your answer?
Well, it was the same. And so it shocked everybody because, one gal's going to, buy all these fancy clothes and apartments in New York. And the other guy was going to start an outdoor company. And they all looked at me and they said, what would you do? I said, I'd start a training company and I'd bring in guest speakers and I'd develop people. And, I'd travel the world, bringing human qualities into the sales process. I'd help people with empathy and rapport and on and on and on. And somebody, well, first of all, they all looked at me and they said, you're kind of sick. And then a guy named Peter Williams came up to me afterward. He put his arm around me. He said, you know what? You don't have to win the lottery. You can do that right now.
So we know already that this was a long time ago because a man in a professional context walked up to you and put his arm around you.
Exactly. Right. I know. My mentor used to bring me into his office and close the door. And these were the good old days, right? Because I had a lot of male mentors that spent so much time with me and made me believe I was better than I was, really.
Well, that's a good thing. So,
Yeah.
so Peter Williams said you can do that right now, and what happened next?
Well, in 1997, I launched the Levitin Group with really at that time 3 goals. So this is pre-internet, right? So goal number 1 was to make my name synonymous with training on a worldwide basis in the hospitality industry. Goal number 2 was to scale, right? To scale my efforts. Now, this is before we had automation tools. This is before we even had internet. So scaling at that time meant videotapes, audio tapes, train the trainer live programs. And then the third goal of the company was then to get into other verticals. So we quickly did that. I don't want to say quickly. There was, of course, a lot of failure and a lot of sweat in the first couple of years. But so we established a global brand, a global training company. This was in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I became a very large fish in a small pond and in a particular vertical. Then we expanded our model when things really shifted for us is we were providing live training, audio, video. Of course, I'm dating myself. And then we realized that a core competency was creating and scaling training programs for major corporations. So companies like Hilton, like Four Seasons, like Marriott would have us come in and we would interview the best people in their organizations and create content. And we always like to say we help the rest be as good as the best. And we would create onboarding programs, interactive training programs, again, pre-internet. So they had video and we would help them scale and we had amazing results. And so we really got into content creation and the helping of scaling of training and development of managers, coaches, et cetera. Then from there, once 2008 happened and a lot of people left hospitality, we're getting emails from people all over saying, wow, your training program really works. We're using it to sell bridges or to sell software or to sell real estate or all different types of things. And that's when we really spread out into different verticals.
And so tell us, what are the core concepts that you're promulgating in the training? It sounds like it has something to do, as you mentioned, with authenticity and rehumanizing the sales process, but walk us through the tenets of it.
Yeah, and it's really changed over the years. So as we get more and more technology, Sam, one thing we know, information's everywhere today. Back in the day when I started, accessing information was laborious, right? You had to actually go to a training program or you had to listen to a video. Today, information comes to us. So it's not so much a matter of accessing information as filtering information. And so with information overload and everything that's going on today, how we interact with customers has obviously shifted quite a bit. There's some interesting statistics out there that first generation smartphone users have lost their empathy by 40%. The
Wow.
very skill needed to build trust and to win sales. And today we find that so many organizations are, whether it's in SaaS or whether it's in telecommunications, we serve a wide variety of markets. We're still seeing that there's so much emphasis on the technology and on the product knowledge and not nearly enough emphasis on really the middle of the funnel, right? So how do we build these relationships? How do we get consensus with now Gartner tells us 11 stakeholders?
Yeah.
How do we do that? What kinds of questions do we ask? How do we make sense of all the information that the customers already have? One of the things that we do in one of the keynotes that we deliver that really works with any sales methodology, we say that today's salespeople and sales leaders need to do everything Alexa can't do. And so, because Alexa has information, we've got automation. So how do we survive in this new reality? And so we look at different ways of connecting, different ways of asking questions and building consensus, different ways of listening, real listening skills, which 98% of the reps think they do, but don't do. And then how do you take all that information and link it to a brighter future? And what does that look like? And we'll overlay that with challenger sale methodology. We'll overlay that with whatever methodology a company is using.
When you say ask different or better questions, give us some examples. I'm always interested in better questions.
Well, what we do so when we do a training, it's really important to us that they're like rock show fun. So we'll bring in music, we'll bring in metaphors and food and awards, and because salespeople have a short attention span, as you know. So when we talk about questions, we use a fun metaphor, and we call them skin, bone, heart, and connective tissue questions. Because one thing we know is that a lot of these ideas about open-ended questions, it can be really confusing for sales reps. And so what we share with them is skin questions, as an example, are surface level questions. And 80% of sales reps are pretty good at asking these surface level questions. But that's where most sales reps stop. And surface level questions, Sam, are things you would find out on somebody's LinkedIn profile. So how many reps do they have in their organization, for example? What software are you using now? What trigger events have happened in your company, et cetera? And most reps literally just ask these sort of skin questions. Better reps dig a little deeper and ask bone questions. And these are things we just give it a frame that's fun for new reps. Better sales reps ask bone questions, which are problems that the customer's having now, and of course, then digging into the implications of those problems. But what the best salespeople do is they get past the skin, through the bones, and into the heart of their customers. And that's harder to teach reps. How to find not just the problems, but the emotional reasons, the what's in it for them, the objectives. And then we look at the 7 reasons, the 7 key motivators to all human decision making. And we back that with neuroscience. And especially in technology, how is this going to help this person to do their job better? How's it going to build their culture? And then we go into the 4th type of question, which is really critical today, and that is what we call a connective tissue question. And a connective tissue system looks at the ecosystem within how the customer operates, because one of the things we're finding out today is, and this is from, I'm on a thought leader panel with Gartner, and they came out with studies, which I'm sure you've seen, that talk about that, just getting to a customer's problems and motivations isn't enough today. One of the biggest reasons people aren't making decisions is because gaining consensus is so difficult and prioritizing. So it's asking questions that get to the root of, how does your organization make decisions? How do we provide a framework for you to make sense of all of the information that you've acquired in all your departments and really be a sense maker, not just a deliverer of information?
This sounds difficult.
It sounds difficult?
The last part does. I mean, I'm still, well, here's a question for you. I mean, obviously I think I know the answer, but because you mentioned that, asking heart questions or getting to the heart of the matter, understanding people's true motivations, their emotional motivations, that's very difficult, and it's difficult to teach. How much of an impact do you think, it's sort of nurture versus nature. How much do you think great reps are born, and how teachable and coachable are people, so that if you give them the right tools and the right framework and the right structure, they can be guided towards a great outcome?
That's the age-old question. We use the term from David Brooks' book on character, that there's 2 types of virtues in this world. There's resume virtues and eulogy virtues. And resume virtues are those virtues such as how successful you've been, the sort of sales skills that someone can acquire. So their ability to ask questions, their ability to build a relationship, to build trust, their ability to shed their product in the best light. And then there's eulogy virtues, which are things that people would say at your eulogy, like curiosity, kindness, compassion, empathy. And while I do believe, Sam, that we can increase our eulogy virtues through practice, because we can practice optimism or practice empathy like we practice an instrument. But I also believe that there are people that just don't test high in empathy skills. and they just don't have it. Now, can they learn the scripts to appear like they have them? Sure. Can they learn how to trick their brain perhaps to be more optimistic? Sure. But I think the long answer to a short question is it's a little bit of both. Because I think you can only go so far if you don't have certain things, certain skills that you're born with.
This episode of the Sales Hacker Podcast is brought to you by DocuSign. Every sales org feels the pressure to close deals faster. Take control with the DocuSign Agreement Cloud, a suite of tools that automate sales contracts and quotes all in your CRM. Create custom contracts, get them signed, and pull data back into your opportunities. See why more than 500,000 businesses use DocuSign with a free trial and discount exclusively for Sales Hacker listeners. Go to go.docusign.com/saleshacker for more information. Our second sponsor is Outreach, the leading sales engagement platform. Outreach supports sales reps by enabling them to humanize their communications at scale, from automating the soul-sucking manual work that eats up selling time to providing action-oriented tips on what communications are working best. Outreach has your back. And now, back to the show. Where was the research that people have lost empathy by 40%? That's a fascinating and scary statistic.
Yeah, there's a great book by Shari Levitin called How to Reclaim the Conversation. And it's about the impact of social media on us and our youth. And there's another fascinating film that I highly recommend. I live here in Park City, and I have the wonderful opportunity to see premieres at Sundance. And one of the premieres we saw was called The Social Dilemma by Jeff Orlowski. And he talks about the impact of social media today on our brains. And the reason it's called The Social Dilemma is because there's the good and the bad, right? So the good is, we can unite cancer patients to talk. I mean, I don't have to tell you the good of the internet and social media, but they go through some of the challenges. And one of the biggest challenges is this complete loss of empathy. And if you have children, you've seen this. I have a 15-year-old, and I have to keep saying, Tyler, eyes, look up. Please don't break up with your girlfriend with an emoji. It's like, that is so uncool. And I find one of the things that happens, to people is they also, so not only do we have a lack of empathy, but a lack of ability to deal with conflict at any level, which what is an objection but conflict?
Yeah. Because,
this generation, if there's a conflict, they just don't respond. They just go away. Well, when we get an objection, we need to listen. We need to be empathetic. We need to understand their point of view. So yeah, there's some really interesting research today, but overall, we have much lower empathy. And we're finding that when we just teach basic skills for carrying on a conversation, for broadening the conversation, for how to do a good discovery, how to tell stories based on what you hear, how to leverage video once you've had that great sales conversation, and to repeat back everything you heard through video. Wow, that's how you get to the other stakeholders, is because you're the only one that actually listened, repeated back what the customer's issues are. And if you can do it through video, you're going to beat your competition, because very few people are leveraging video still in the sales process.
Well, that's really interesting what you said, because we've, in Revenue Collective, lots of people are talking about video, but they're talking about it as part of like an SDR kind of sales development outbound process of getting a meeting. But what you just said is it's sort of a key framework or a key tool for helping build consensus within a multi-threaded, multi-stakeholder sales process. So how are you thinking about video? I think that's really interesting. And walk us through how you use video, in your own business.
Yeah. And I think you're absolutely right, Sam. We can use video throughout the sales process, and certainly to prospect. The way that we've used it and the way we share with our customers how to use it is, let's say you have your discovery call. You've had 2 or 3 back and forths, and now you're ready, to really do that in-depth discovery. Well, in that discovery, we're going to teach reps to, really plot out what they're going to ask, to do their pre-call planning, and to ask those skin, bone, and heart and connective tissue questions, and to really dig in. And when a customer calls us about our whether it's a 2-day training or a keynote, whatever it is, or ongoing training, we're going to spend quite a bit of time asking those questions. Well, again, with an average of 11 stakeholders, I've probably got 2-3 of them on the phone if I'm lucky, maybe just one. So after I've done this great discovery with one of them, what about the other 10? They've got their own fears and hopes and goals and concerns, and buddy who does the same thing I do, right? So how do we differentiate ourselves, and how do we, more importantly, let the customer know that we understand their business and their problems, that we've listened before we ever pitch our solution, right? So, because that's what they're looking for. They're not looking for a solution. Everybody's got a solution. They want to know, can my partner really listen to me, be agile, and understand who we are and what we need today? So what we'll do is, after the call, we will follow up. Now, we happen to use OneMob. There's a lot of great video companies out there, but we'll follow up with no more than a 3-minute video. Just did it for a large healthcare provider, and say, hey, Brenda and Pete, great talking to you. It sounds like in talking to you, you've got 2,500 reps. 1,500 of them are SDRs. The other 1,000 are field reps. So I'm going to go through that skin information that I learned. Then I'm going to say some of the challenges you're facing are da-da-da-da-da-da. This is super important to you because you're looking to expand your market share and you want to maintain your number one status. That's the heart. That's the heart. So I'm going to repeat that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to discuss next steps. I'm never going to sell my product. And then in most of these platforms, you can leave them some, video testimonials or some more information. You talk about next steps, confirm the next meeting. And then, of course, on all of these platforms, then you send it within 24 hours. On all of these platforms, you can track, measure, and monitor who opened it, what they looked at, how long they looked at it. So now I know when I start work on Monday, oh, wow, these 8 prospects that we've been working on that are in our pipeline, they've watched our video 30 times. They must have sent it around the whole company. So I know how to prioritize my week now. But that's how we're using it. And we're getting comments from people. And Sam, I know this is going to go away, like it's new and hot right now. And possibly a year from now, it won't be so interesting anymore. So I think we need to leverage it quickly. But what we're hearing from our customers is, wow, you really listen to us. Wow, you really articulate. We're building more trust because we have video. And they'll say, can you teach our reps to do what you just did? And so we're showing, not telling. And it's for now, like I said, with less than 10% of the sales reps doing this, it's very effective. And I just made up that number, by the way. I don't know if that's true.
The 10% number?
Yeah, I just made it up.
Well, you're a woman after my own heart. I love making up numbers too.
It sounded good, right?
It sounds great. It's I believe it.
98% of the people don't believe statistics.
Exactly. Well, one obvious retort, but I know you got a great answer for it, which is I'm gonna tee it up for you. Some people are very self-conscious about being on video because they say, I don't have the right lighting. I'm not going to look professional. But talk about why you are convinced, and I agree with you, that authenticity and, you can call it vulnerability or reality, whatever it is, but being real and how powerful it is and how it's worked for your business, because the stories you were telling me before we started recording were fantastic.
Well, I learned it because I have a millennial coworker who slammed me one day. I've been using online learning for 10, 15 years. We've been using it for a long time when it was bulky and difficult and selling it as software as a service. And always when I did it for so many years, I would get all my makeup on. I'd go into a studio and bring in a professional videographer. And it was a big deal. And gosh, it might not even have been 5 years ago. It might have just been 4 years ago. Sam, one of my colleagues, who's a millennial, said, hey, Shari, would you just cool it with all these staged videos? Because people in my generation don't relate to you. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, you're like, there's no authenticity. Oh, and then he told me I had pitch voice, which made it even worse. But he said, just be yourself. And I happened to be hiking when we were having our conference call with earbuds. I live in Park City. And he says, I dare you, do a video right now while you're on a hike and do a Facebook Live. And I said, I'm not doing that. No way. I look like hell. I don't have any makeup on. He said, exactly. He said, try it. I double dare you. Well, I went ahead and did it and put it out, and we got like 16,000 views.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, okay, first of all, this is a lot easier than writing a blog because, maybe I'm a pretty good writer, but to be honest, it takes me 5 hours to write a blog that I feel good about. It just takes me a long time. That's the way my brain works. Video, take one, take two, sort of talk about here's the 3 things you want to think about. It takes, a few minutes. And now, instead of single digits looking at it as in a written blog, we have so many more views. So that's how we started, and then just kept refining it from there. So my advice to anybody listening would be, they want you. And the truth is, sometimes the worse I look, the better the blog does. I think too many people think that they need to have a professional office setting and they, do it in front of the bookshelf. And the truth is, our most watched videos are when I'm on a horse, or I'm hiking, or I'm skiing, or
Shari, you're rubbing your lifestyle in. It's really, it's like you're always hiking, skiing, riding. I want your life.
Well, the truth is, it's because I live with 2 boys. So my son is 15, and on weekends we recreate. That's what we do. And I live in Park City. I live in the mountains. So that's what one does. Now, there's a lot of things we don't get to do living here in the mountains. But yeah, so when we're doing something like that, we'll just take out a camera, a phone. And so I would encourage people. I know so many people, they're worried I'm too fat, I'm too this, I'm too that. Most of the public doesn't look like a model. We're not models. And the truth is, we're going to relate to more people if we're who we are, if we talk about our failures, if we talk about our foibles. And that's the way to connect today, because people don't want it so polished anymore. They want to know you, and you have something special and authentic, and you've got great stories to tell.
I love it. That's a powerful message. We've got a few minutes left, and there's obviously something going on in the world. It's March 17th. We have no idea how much the world is going to change in the weeks between when we record this today and what's going to happen. But I think it would be silly to not acknowledge it. And I think one of the key questions we can talk about that is timeless, which is, what's advice that you're giving to people? I've never personally lived through a period like this with so much uncertainty. The financial crisis I lived through, that had a tremendous amount of uncertainty, but you knew what the causes were, and you knew roughly some kind of timeline, potentially. In the first couple of days when Lehman was collapsing, maybe not. But now we're faced with a situation where we really don't have a lot of visibility. We don't know how long this is going to last. What's the advice that you're giving either your family or your coworkers or people that you're training in terms of mindset, how to approach this and how to tackle every day? And what are the do's and don'ts?
Well, there's 4 things I would think about. And I hear a siren behind you, Sam. That's great sound effects, right? I love the sound effects we're getting here. I think the first thing that we need to realize, for those of us that are listening, we need to replace panic with poise. There are so many people out there right now that are panicking. They're in their fear mind. They're looking for the worst. And at the end of the day, we can't control it. We always think we're in control, but if you think about your life, you're never in control. There's deaths that happen when we don't expect them. There's a financial crisis, and now we have a global pandemic. And so as leaders, we need to replace this panic with poise, replace fear with focus, and say, what can I do that's productive, that's goal achieving and not stress relieving? It's easy to fall into, I'm just going to, have a bunch of wine tonight, or I'm just going to, be on social media all night, and to sort of default into this very unproductive behavior. So I think it can be a grand time to take time and reflect, to take time and be with those people you can be close to take time, and if you are fortunate, to help those who are less fortunate. I mean, there are people in our community in Park City. We're in a ski town. We've got 25% of the children in our high school rely on meals just to eat from the school. They're going hungry. How can we help? So we're teaching our son that this isn't a time of, being on the computer. This is a time of reaching out to our communities and saying, how can we help? Can we give food? Can we give money? Can you tutor other kids? We got all these people that are home, mothers trying to deal with their children being home that are also trying to work from home. So we said to our son, can you offer tutoring services to junior high kids? And he got all excited because now he's part of the solution instead of focusing on the problem. So I would say that's number one. I would say number two, we can look about and read about all the horrible stories about people shoving each other in line at a Costco. But I will tell you, there are some beautiful stories and beautiful acts of kindness. I was really heartened to learn about the Italians who are all quarantined in their homes. I don't know if you saw this, Sam. One night, they all got on their balconies and just started singing.
I did see it. Pavarotti was even singing, I think.
Oh, I get the chills when I hear that. There was a great video going around about they'd closed down an aquarium. This was just in, I think it was in the Wall Street Journal or the Washington Post. And they'd closed down an aquarium. And these two penguins are walking around looking at the aquarium because the penguins got out. And so the penguins are just, these lovely stories that are heartening. We need to look for those. We need to look for the good. And I also think we need to now leverage technologies that we've all been talking about. This is the time we can learn, we can grow, we can have a growth mindset. We have time to learn and do things that we've never done before because we're forced into different habits, which is actually extraordinary. I think we're going to see some huge unintended consequences. Sure, we know the global markets are spinning right now, that, certain industries are, really faltering, and then other industries are doing better than ever. We have to look at what we can control. And what we can control is our attitude, our compassion, and our development of ourselves. And this is a great time to hunker down and learn new things and do different things than we're used to doing, to get out of our comfort zone. And most importantly, to be there for the people we love.
Absolutely. Shari, there's people out there that are listening that are inspired by what you're saying, or they might want to hire you and your team to help train themselves or their teams, even virtually, if that's what it is necessary in this time. So how should people reach out to you and contact you if they want to engage?
My email, Shari@ShariLevitin.com. You can send me a message on LinkedIn. We also have free videos constantly, little training tips on LinkedIn, or you can go to our website, ShariLevitin.com.
Awesome. Shari, thanks so much for being on the Sales Hacker podcast. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, Sam, you too. Bye-bye.
Hey folks, Sam Jacobs is Sam's Corner. I really enjoyed that conversation with Shari. Of course, we did it in the middle of the COVID-19 coronavirus scare pandemic. So, that's always going to be a subject of conversation. How do you lead through uncertainty? How do you provide a reassurance? How do you use tools like video conferencing and teleconferencing and things like that to create the right type of relationship and continue to sell? But I think the most important thing for me came through was around authenticity. That's the thing, and she mentioned how, she learned from one of her coworkers that's a younger person, but this is not the time. And I think we can see this. I'm just seeing this everywhere in marketing. This is not the time for long, these big emails that you're going to send out with like 15 different proof points that the marketing team wrote up about why your solution is different than the competition. You have to sound human. You have to sound human. You have to look human. You have to sound human. I think more people should use video. Shari was talking about how you should use video mid-cycle as a way of telling the story and multi-threading the conversation. I thought that was a brilliant insight. But the most important thing is you've just got to be a real human being, because people are tuning out to roboticized corporate messages. They just don't need it. They don't listen to it. It's not useful. So I think that's something to keep in mind, something to remember, especially when we're all sitting at home trying to do emails and video conferences and keep this damn economy going while, at least in end of March when I'm recording this, when it's screeching to a halt. So we've got to be human. We've got to be super effective right now, super tailored, super personalized, super customized, because spamming people when, they got a toddler on their knee, they're walking the dog, they're trapped inside ready to kill somebody, just don't do it. It's not useful. You're not adding any value. The way that you add value, if you are a business person right now, is by showing empathy, listening, and trying to create a customized solution that meets the needs of the person that you're talking to. But you can only do that through listening. So thought it was a great conversation. We want to thank our sponsor for bringing this show to you. Outreach supports sales reps. That's our sponsors, Outreach. We love Outreach, and they support sales reps. They support all kinds of customer-facing professionals by enabling them to humanize communications at scale, from automating the soul-sucking manual work that eats up selling time to providing action-oriented tips on what communications are working best. Outreach has your back. If you're out there and you're feeling isolated or alone and you want a community, I would be remiss if I didn't tell you about Revenue Collective, the community that I run. We're a global organization approaching 2,000 global members. We've got chapters everywhere, and we've really tried to be there in this time for our members. So we're doing daily webinars, we're doing virtual happy hours, virtual breakfasts, using all the tools that we have to connect with people and bring people together. I hope that it's working, and we'll see what happens. But if you're out there, you're obviously, I'm sure your companies are doing some interesting things, but make sure that you've got some community that isn't just your company. Maybe it's your friends, maybe it's your loved ones that you're connecting with, that you're being real with, and that you're sharing some of the challenges that you're facing, because, we see deals pushing, we see hires being delayed, and you need people to talk this through, if only just to remind yourself that you're not alone and that there's other people going through this. So I hope everybody's doing well out there. If you want to reach out to me, you can. LinkedIn.com/the word in /Sam F. Jacobs. And otherwise, I'll talk to you soon.